Do you worry about the trade situation? It seems to be escalating now, not only with the Mexicans, the latest entrant here, but with the Chinese, and that economic warfare might be just as dangerous.
Yeah, I do. I worry about it very much. Your point about economic warfare may be just as dangerous. Absolutely, because our economy, the economies of the world are now interconnected. You're not going to unwind those economies. Technology has changed that, if for no other reason. And so you look at these trade treaties we've had over the years. For example, NAFTA. I think NAFTA has been one of the most successful trade treaties we've ever had. Ask farmers, ask ranchers, ask people I used to represent in the Midwest, small businesses. They've never done so well because of that 20-year treaty. But these are important because it brings people together. You start down the path of tariffs and trade wars, there will be consequences, definitely, but there'll also be unintended consequences that will have a devastating effect on our economy, on economies of the world, on standards of living. And where that stops and where that ends, no one is ever sure. So yes, economic warfare is right at the top of challenges.
Well, the reason why I mentioned it, Secretary, is the president is convinced that, as you know, China's been taking advantage of us for years and granting special favor to their industries at our expense, and that they kind of started this, so we're responding in kind and getting them to recognize it will be different under this new sheriff. What do you think of that?
Well, I do think that China has taken advantage of their membership in the WTO, that they, as you know, became a member 20 years ago. Right. I do think they've been deceitful. I do think they've shut our companies out a lot. I think that's real. But it's a matter of how you deal with it, how you manage it, how you approach it. I don't think the way to do that is unilaterally, arbitrarily saying, well, we're just going to tariff the hell out of you. And then
but what if they
fix
buckle?
that.
I know you know them far better than I, sir, but what if they do buckle, or they realize they need some sort of agreement much more than we do, so they blink, or whatever you want to call it? What do you think?
Well, I don't know if you want to take that chance. I don't know what the Chinese are going to do. I don't read their minds. I don't know how many people in this country are that smart to know what the Chinese are going to do. I can tell you this. I've dealt with the Chinese for many, many years. First time I went to China was 1983 as a businessman. I've dealt with them as a senator or secretary of defense in many capacities, businessman. And they often remind me, we've been around 5,000 years. We're patient. We know how to deal with these things. So we've got to come up with a smarter way. Why don't we do this with allies, with alliances? What's going on in China and the blowback against our markets is happening to other countries too. Why don't we take the force of those numbers and start there? There's a WTO which was set up to deal with some of these things. It's not perfect, and by the way, we've won far more cases in the WTO than we've ever lost, but a lot of other ways to do this. But once you start down that track of really potential warfare, you're going to have your hands full, and where this goes and ends up is uncertain. I don't want to take that chance. Maybe some do, but I don't want to take that chance with our economy and our position and our standing in the world.
You know, as a former defense secretary and all, I'd be curious to get your view on negotiating from what the president says is a position of strength. We have the world's best economy. People can debate that, but that we're in a position now that we'll never be in to extract these concessions from the Chinese and right the ship, so to speak. What do you think?
Well, I think that's pretty simplistic. I mean, because we have the most powerful military on earth and the largest economy, we're in a position now to make demands that we may not be in a position to do later. I think that's pretty simplistic. I don't think the world works that way. I don't think the Chinese work that way. The Chinese got a lot of problems inside, many problems. And I think they're just starting to surface, and I think they're going to have a lot of problems for a long time. But again, I don't think that's a smart way to handle them. We, the United States, are going to have a strong military, a strong economy, a strong system, national laws, constitution. We can self-correct. We're going to be around a while, unless we really, really make stupid mistakes over the next few years. We're going to be around a while. And let's play for not just the short term, but for the long term. And I'm not sure we always think that through in our foreign policy, our military decisions, and other business decisions as well.
You know, the president has been looking at the crop of candidates who want to challenge him, Secretary, and saying that they don't have a chance, even referring to Joe Biden, you know, Sleepy Joe or whatever he calls him. But that it's not going to be a threat, given his stewardship of an improving economy, strong markets, a strong defense, that in this environment it's going to be impossible to take him out. Normally, history shows that if you're overseeing an economy that strong or markets this resilient, you do get reelected. But he is in a battle. What do you make of it?
Well, first, we have a year and a half to go before the election. Is there anyone out there that thinks not much is going to happen in the next year and a half that's going to affect that election? Oh, there's going to be plenty to happen, both good and bad, and some of it may be disastrous over the next year and a half. It will affect the presidential outcome and the congressional outcome in November of next year. That's where I start. Second, we've got months and months to go before the Democrats even get close to deciding who their candidate is.
Do you think it's going to be Biden?
I think it's just too early to tell. Yeah. I think Joe Biden has a lane kind of by himself. I think he's in a good spot. But what's going to happen, I don't know. I can tell you this. In all the elections that I've watched and participated in over the years, no two elections are ever the same. 2016 is different. It was very different for all the reasons we know. I mean, everybody laughed at Trump. Nobody said he could be elected. And he's president today. 2020 is going to be a different environment, totally, than 2016. How that all starts to cut and where that goes. And if I was President Trump, I wouldn't be too sanguine about this economy being the same and being where we are today, where we're going to be in a year and a half. I don't know if he continues down the track that he's been on tariffs and trade wars and threats and demeaning our partnerships and alliances and friendships and NATO. I don't know how that's going to cut. You're seeing the Republican Senate get their back up for the first time in 2.5 years on these.
But it's not the same Republican
tariffs.
Party, right? And I know as a Republican, you know, by DNA yourself. I mean, are you worried that George Will is right then, that the Republican Party, he's of course no fan of the president, so we're just putting that in context, that the Republican Party has become more of a cult?
Well, I think Will makes some very good points. I haven't read all of his book. I've read some of it. I've read the columns. I mean, for example, when I first became a Republican, I'm still a Republican. I'm not sure what that means today. We were a party of international engagement, fiscal responsibility, and free trade. I don't think you can apply those three to the Republican Party today. Matter of fact, just the opposite. So you're right. That's a good point. It's a different Republican Party. And by the way, looping this back to World War II, I saw the Congress of the United States dramatically change when the World War II generation left the stage. When I got to the Senate, I was fortunate enough to be able to work with a lot of World War II veterans. Their stature, their common sense, their judgment always prevailed, and from stopping a lot of dumb things in both the Democrat and Republican parties. Once they left, there was no anchor. We kind of came loose of our moorings, especially the Republican Party did, I think. And so I think your point's a very good one. I don't know how all this plays out over the next few years. I don't know, again, what the Republican Party is. It's not the party that I once served in the United States Senate.
Secretary, I really enjoyed talking to you. I'm glad we had the opportunity. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.